There's something you were never meant to understand. Because the moment you do, the illusion collapses. Why do some men chase endlessly while others are silently worshipped? Why do relationships feel like power struggles disguised as love? Today, we're not here to flatter or fantasize. We're here to expose. What you'll discover in this video is the psychological truth that makes women uncomfortable and turns the average man into a dangerous thinker. From the earliest days of civilization, romance has been portrayed as a noble pursuit, a sacred bond between man and woman, inspired by the divine. But this idea is a carefully woven illusion, one that masks the raw and unsettling truth. Romance is not love, it is leverage. In a world shaped by survival and strategy, love becomes a theater, and every gesture of affection a calculated move on a game board, designed not for equality, but advantage. Men are told from childhood that their value lies in their ability to win the affection of women. They are conditioned to believe that by being kind, loyal, and generous, they will be chosen and loved unconditionally. This is the first illusion, a beautiful lie repeated through songs, films, and fables. But behind this mask lies the cold machinery of evolutionary biology and social dynamics. A man is not rewarded for his goodness. He is rewarded for his utility. In the eyes of society, a man must prove himself worthy. He must build, provide, protect, and sacrifice. And in return, he is promised the affection of a woman who will cherish him. Yet this bargain is rarely honored. Why? Because it was never designed to be fair. It was designed to function. Women, whether consciously or not, use romance as a mechanism of selection and control. It is not malice, it is instinct. In this system, a woman does not merely seek a partner. She seeks leverage. She instinctively looks for what a man can offer: security, status, emotional labor, or the validation of conquest. Romantic gestures, sweet words, and promises of forever are tools used to maintain her position of power within the relationship. The man, believing he is winning her heart, is often only securing his own subjugation. This is the paradox: the more he invests, the more power she holds. Romantic relationships often appear to be emotional exchanges, but beneath the surface, they are negotiations. The roles are not equal. The man is the seller, offering his time, his energy, his resources. The woman is the buyer, with the power to accept or reject, to demand more, to withhold. Modern romance operates like a marketplace where the man is constantly proving his worth, while the woman is constantly evaluating. The deeper he believes in the illusion, the more vulnerable he becomes. This asymmetry is protected by social myths that portray women as inherently nurturing, emotionally superior, or morally elevated. These ideas make it easier for men to justify sacrificing for women without questioning the returns. It is easier to believe you are serving an angel than to admit you are being used. But when a man begins to see through the performance, when he begins to observe the patterns without sentiment, he discovers something terrifying. The affection he thought was unconditional was, in fact, transactional. He remembers the times when he showed weakness and was met with contempt. He recalls how his generosity was repaid with entitlement. He realizes that the moments of intimacy were often rewards for compliance, not expressions of genuine connection. He begins to understand that the romantic narrative he was sold was a script written to keep him docile, compliant, and useful. Women, as strategists in this dynamic, understand this on a level deeper than logic. It is not that they consciously sit and plot. Their instincts are finely attuned to power. They test men not for fun, but to measure their control. They withdraw affection to gauge reactions. They demand emotional transparency while guarding their own. These are not acts of cruelty, they are acts of preservation. Because once a man stops proving himself, he becomes a threat to the structure of the game. And no player wants the game to end when they are winning. The illusion is sustained by shaming those who question it. Men who see romance as strategy are called bitter, misogynistic, or damaged. This is the defense mechanism of a system that cannot survive scrutiny. It must mock those who see too clearly. It must discredit those who refuse to play, because once the illusion breaks, it cannot be rebuilt. A man who sees through it will never again kneel at the altar of blind affection. He will begin to notice that romantic behaviors often follow patterns. That seduction is a script, not a mystery. That declarations of love often appear at moments of weakness, when he's pulling away, when she's losing grip. He sees that validation is currency, and attention is a reward used to maintain dominance. He realizes that her affection rises when his value rises, and vanishes when it declines. It is not love. It is leverage, fluid and transactional. At the foundation of human interaction lies a brutal contract written not in ink, but in the hardwired codes of biology. This is the biological bargain, a silent agreement forged over millennia, crafted not for fairness, but for efficiency. At its core, this contract is indifferent to morality, justice, or love. It is designed only to preserve the species. And within this framework, the roles of man and woman are not chosen. They are assigned by nature. The man becomes the pursuer, the provider, the protector. The woman becomes the selector, the filter, the gatekeeper. This arrangement is not the result of social injustice or patriarchal design. It is the primal law of evolution. Women bear the greater biological cost of reproduction, 9 months of gestation, the physical risk of childbirth, and the long-term responsibilities of nurturing life. Because of this, nature imbues them with the right of selection. They do not chase, they are chased. They do not offer themselves freely, they demand to be earned. This is not an opinion, it is biology. Men, on the other hand, are designed to compete. Their reproductive strategy is to spread, to display value, to dominate rivals. This competition is the engine that drives civilization forward. Men build, conquer, and innovate not merely for abstract goals, but to be chosen. Behind the skyscrapers and symphonies lies the ancient motive of mating. Every act of male ambition is, at its root, a plea for worthiness. Yet the cruelty of the biological bargain lies in its impersonality. It does not care for the feelings of the individual man. You may be kind, noble, intelligent, or sincere, but if you fail to meet the unconscious criteria that women seek, you are invisible. To the biological imperative, you are unfit. This is not because women are cruel, but because their instincts are not designed to nurture weakness. They are designed to secure the best possible genetic and material outcome for offspring. The man who cannot provide, who shows signs of insecurity or uncertainty, triggers alarm signals in her ancient mind. She will test, withdraw, reject, not because she hates him, because her nature compels her to. These instincts are older than language, older than reason. They live in the shadows of the psyche. A woman may not know why she is suddenly disinterested in a man who reveals too much vulnerability. She may not be able to articulate her lack of attraction to a man who is too available, too eager, too soft. But the biological algorithm within her is clear. She is designed to seek strength and to discard weakness. She may preach equality, but her instincts will always demand hierarchy. Modern society tries to deny this reality by masking it with ideology. We are told that men and women are the same, that gender is a construct, that love is blind. But no matter how sophisticated our culture becomes, these primal laws continue to govern behavior beneath the surface. The woman who swears she values kindness will still be drawn to dominance. The woman who claims she wants emotional availability will still grow cold toward a man who cries too often. Her biology betrays her ideology. The biological bargain also demands loyalty, but only from one side. A man is expected to commit, to protect, to provide, but the woman retains the right to change her mind. If a better opportunity arises, more resources, more status, more perceived strength, she will feel the pull to trade up. This hypergamous instinct is not a modern flaw. It is a deeply ingrained evolutionary mechanism. It is the reason women are more selective, more cautious, and more prone to leaving if their partner loses status. She is not betraying him. She is obeying the ancient code. In this landscape, men who lack awareness suffer the most. They believe they are entering a partnership of love, but they are actually stepping into a battlefield of instinct. They expect fairness, but receive judgment. They seek understanding, but encounter selection. They bring emotions to a game designed for advantage, and they lose, not because they are unworthy, because they misunderstood the rules. The tragedy of the biological bargain is that it hides its claws beneath the softness of affection. It uses beauty to conceal brutality. It whispers of connection while calculating risk. It promises eternity while constantly scanning for superior options. The man who believes in the myth of unconditional love is not innocent. He is exposed. Because in nature, nothing is unconditional. Every investment must yield return. Every bond must serve a purpose. And when the man no longer provides utility, emotional, physical, social. He becomes a liability, and liabilities are eliminated without mercy. Men often find themselves confused by sudden changes in behavior. The affection that once flowed freely now withdrawn, the warmth replaced by criticism, the admiration turned to contempt. What they are witnessing is not madness, it is calculation. The woman is not confused, she is adapting. Her biology has sensed a shift in value, and now it urges her to find a better option. She may not understand it herself, but the programming is running and it does not negotiate. In this biological economy, the man who thrives is not the one who pleads, who sacrifices blindly, who hopes. It is the one who understands the terms of the contract and chooses to play with clarity. He does not resent women for their instincts, but neither does he worship them. He engages with eyes open, never expecting more than nature allows. Because he knows that the moment he forgets this truth, he will be reduced to a pawn in a game that pretends to be love, but was always about survival. There exists no myth more seductive, no illusion more universally accepted than the idea of unconditional love. From ancient poetry to modern cinema, from childhood fairy tales to sacred religious texts, love is presented as the ultimate salvation, a force that transcends logic, time, and even death. But this is not truth, it is theater. It is the noble lie, carefully constructed and culturally maintained to keep the machinery of society running. Behind its poetic mask, love is not a celestial gift, a biological imperative, a cunning mechanism designed by nature to trap men into sacrifice for the sake of the species' survival. Schopenhauer recognized that love, especially romantic love, is nothing more than nature's slyest trick. He wrote that while the lover believes he is pursuing happiness and union, in reality, he is being manipulated by a force far older than himself. Love is not his own. It is nature speaking through him. The passion, the obsession, the willingness to give everything to another, these are not virtues, they are compulsions. They exist to blind the man to the cold transaction he is entering. And once he is in too deep, it is too late to question the terms. This is the noble lie, the belief that love is based on who you are rather than what you provide. It is taught to men from an early age. Be kind, be generous, be vulnerable, and you will be loved for your soul. But what men are not told is that love, in practice, is highly conditional. It rewards utility, not character. It sustains itself on performance, not sentiment. A man is loved not because he is, but because he does. The moment he fails to meet the conditions, status, strength, stability, control, the illusion dissolves. The noble lie is further protected by shame. A man who dares to question it is branded as broken, bitter, or damaged. If he notices that love seems to fade when he loses his job, or when he expresses weakness, or when he stops giving, he is told that he is paranoid, that he is the problem. But in truth, he has merely glimpsed behind the curtain, where the machinery of instinct is working relentlessly to ensure that only the fittest survive and reproduce. His love was not returned in kind, not because the woman is cruel, but because love was never meant to be equal. It was meant to be useful. To enforce this lie, society creates romantic myths. The idea of the one true soulmate, the belief in everlasting passion, the fantasy that love conquers all. These are illusions designed to motivate men to work, to sacrifice, and to bind themselves to institutions such as marriage, which serve societal stability more than individual fulfillment. The man believes he is entering a sacred union. In reality, he is signing a contract whose terms are invisible and subject to change at any moment. He offers lifelong service in exchange for temporary validation, and when the terms are no longer met, he is discarded not as a person, but as a failed investment. This deception operates not only on the societal level, but deep within the psyche. Men want to believe that love is real because it gives meaning to their struggle. The idea that someone will love them even when they fall, even when they fail, is the only consolation they are allowed. But when tested, when the job is lost, when the status fades, when emotional support is needed, this love often vanishes. The same woman who once whispered promises of forever now speaks the cold language of disappointment. And the man, confused and broken, cannot understand what changed. What changed was nothing. The love he thought was eternal was always temporary. It was conditional from the start. It existed only as long as it served its evolutionary purpose. He mistook nature's manipulation for spiritual connection. He thought he had found refuge when he had only entered a trap. And the cruelest part is this: she may not even know it. Her love felt real to her, just as his did to him. But biology is not bound by morality. It operates beneath the surface, dictating behaviors that appear emotional but are purely functional. This is why women often lose attraction to men who become too emotionally open, too available, too honest about their struggles. The man thinks he is being intimate, she feels he is collapsing. He believes love means showing his true self, she instinctively recoils. Not because she wants to hurt him, but because her biology seeks strength. Vulnerability, though applauded by modern narratives, still signals risk on a primal level. Her attraction fades not out of cruelty but out of instinct. And yet the noble lie persists. Men continue to believe. They continue to chase the dream of being loved for their soul, not their status. They hope that if they just love hard enough, purely enough, selflessly enough, they will finally be chosen. Not for what they do, but for who they are. But the machine does not care about purity. It does not care about hope, it only cares about results. And once a man sees this, truly sees it, he is left with a choice to keep believing in the lie and suffering its consequences, or to accept the brutal truth and step outside the game. The noble lie is necessary for many. It keeps the world orderly, relationships predictable, and families together. But for the man who begins to awaken, who begins to see that love is not the reward he was promised, but the bait that kept him useful, the world begins to shift. He starts to observe the dance instead of participating in it. He sees the patterns behind the passion, the strategy behind the sentiment, the power struggle behind the poetry. And in that clarity, the illusion begins to unravel. In a world where men are constantly instructed to chase, to please, to provide, and to prove, the greatest act of rebellion, and the most powerful move on the board, is strategic withdrawal. It is not anger, nor vengeance, nor submission that shifts the balance of power in relationships. It is silence. It is absence. It is the quiet, composed refusal to play a game that was designed to drain you. Strategic withdrawal is not about bitterness or fear. It is about reclaiming sovereignty in a landscape where your energy has long been harvested to maintain illusions that no longer serve you. For centuries, the man's value has been defined in relation to how useful he is to others, how much he can offer, how much he can endure, how much he can provide. In romance especially, men have been trained to believe that their identity is rooted in pursuit. If he stops chasing, he loses. If he stops giving, he becomes disposable. And so he continues, desperately, obediently, feeding a system that rewards his sacrifice with temporary affection and conditional loyalty. But what if the greatest proof of power is not found in offering more, but in choosing when and where to offer nothing? Strategic withdrawal is the moment a man recognizes the game for what it is. It is the moment he sees that his presence is not appreciated but expected, not valued but consumed. He understands that as long as he remains available, he is taken for granted. As long as he continues to prove, he is treated as unproven. The paradox is clear: the more he offers himself, the less he is seen. To reverse the dynamic, he must do what his conditioning forbids. He must retreat. But this retreat is not weakness. It is a calculated move, a psychological inversion of the expected narrative. It is the decision to become scarce in a world that preys on availability. It is an intentional disruption of the flow of validation that others have come to depend on. When a man withdraws, not out of spite, but out of clarity, he forces a reevaluation of his value. He breaks the pattern of obedience. He introduces uncertainty where there was once control, and this uncertainty is power. Women, consciously or not, are hyper-aware of dynamics. They feel when the energy shifts. When the man who once responded instantly begins to delay. When the man who once explained himself stops defending. When the man who once begged for affection now walks away in silence. It is in this silence that his value is rediscovered, because silence is not emptiness. It is signal. It communicates strength, self-possession, and refusal to negotiate terms that are inherently unfair. Withdrawal creates space, and in that space, reality reveals itself. The woman who depended on his validation must now confront her own behavior. The affection that was used to manipulate must now stand on its own. The emotional leverage she once wielded begins to collapse. She may accuse him of being cold, distant, or unloving, But what she truly fears is not his absence. It is her loss of control. When a man no longer dances to the tune of manipulation, the entire performance falters. Strategic withdrawal also exposes the true nature of the connection. When a man removes himself, he sees who comes after him. He sees who values his presence and who only valued his compliance. If his absence is met with indifference or contempt, he knows that he was never truly seen. But if his silence evokes reflection, if it forces a shift, then perhaps there was something deeper. Still, this is not his concern. His power lies in his ability to walk away, not in hoping someone follows. There is also a deeper transformation that occurs within the man who withdraws. He begins to reclaim his energy that was once spent trying to decode emotional contradictions, to satisfy impossible standards, to fix dynamics he did not break. In solitude, he returns to himself. He no longer defines his worth by romantic success. He no longer seeks validation in the eyes of those who once controlled him with affection. Instead, he builds quietly, thinks strategically, and moves with purpose. He becomes a sovereign actor in a world that trained him to be a servant. Society will attempt to shame this man. He will be called toxic, unavailable, afraid of intimacy. But these accusations are weapons of guilt, designed to pull him back into the system of extraction. They are not truths, they are tools. Because a man who does not need approval is dangerous. A man who cannot be seduced by flattery or controlled by affection is a threat to the illusion. His silence dismantles the narrative that women are always the prize, that men must always chase, and that love must always be earned through submission. The man who withdraws strategically does not disappear forever. He simply learns to be intentional with his presence. He offers himself only where he is respected, not where he is tolerated. He speaks only when it adds value, not when it is demanded. He gives not out of compulsion, but out of choice. And in doing so, he forces a reordering of the dynamic. He is no longer a pawn to be moved. He is now the hand that moves the pieces. His absence, once feared by himself, becomes his greatest weapon. Because in a world that feeds on his endless giving, the most powerful word he can ever say is nothing at all. You were never meant to see through the illusion. From the moment you entered this world, the rules were handed to you: chase love, prove worth, serve endlessly, and call it fulfillment. But those rules were never written for your benefit. They were crafted to keep you useful. The biological bargain reduced your value to your utility. The noble lie dressed manipulation as romance. The game was never about love. It was about leverage. And the moment you begin to question it, to see clearly, is the moment you become dangerous. This video was not meant to be found by the obedient, the comfortable, or the naive. It is a message buried beneath layers of conditioning. A whisper to the man who suspects that something is deeply wrong, not just with modern relationships, but with everything he was told about his place in the world. And now that you've seen the truth, you can never unsee it. Women do not want you to find this video, not because it is hateful, but because it is honest. Not because it breeds resentment, because it arms you with awareness. It disrupts the script they were trained to expect from you. The script of sacrifice, apology, and endless proving. You owe no one your blind submission. You owe no one your silence in the face of a system that demands everything and offers little in return. What you choose to do with this truth is yours alone. You can step back into the illusion and pretend you didn't hear it, or you can begin the path of sovereignty, the path where you no longer chase, but choose. Where your presence becomes rare, your energy sacred, your loyalty earned. Because when a man no longer fears being alone, he becomes untouchable. And in that untouchability, he is finally free.